I'm making Getting Over It, but using an umbrella. And after a 4-day game jam, the game looks like this. Now I have an event in 2 weeks that I want to playtest the game at, and there are 3 things I need to do before then. 1. To have the player be more than just a rectangle. 2. To add more movement mechanics. And 3. To design a first area that will be similar to the full release of the game. Up first, what should the player character be? A human is the obvious choice for using an umbrella, but they're hard to animate, and I do not want this game to take 4 years like the last one. I wanted an incentive to use the umbrella to protect yourself from the weather. Now what's something that needs to stay dry and not overheat in the sun? Me. But I won't die if I get wet. But what will die? Electronics. And so the idea to use a robot arm was born. And the clincher was this ledge get up animation I thought of. Isn't it cool? But a robot arm is not very relatable to our primal human instincts. So how do I make it more personal? Like anything, slap a face on it. This screen can also be used to show diagnostic information like water intake, as well as symbols to show saving, tutorials and more. All diegetic, which I'm a fan of. Unfortunately, this screen gets covered up by the procedurally animated arm. My first thought was to have the arm behind the screen and mask it with the silhouette aesthetic. Oh dear, I think we need a better silhouette. I made the arm as hollow as possible so that it could go across the screen without covering it too much. Now on to part 2 of the playtest plan. It was time to make improvements to the movement options and even add brand new ones. Up first is the hook. Not only is it quicker and more clear to hook onto ledges, when you press up, you automatically enter a get up animation, rather than having to manually move yourself onto the ledge. There's also an option to pull down the umbrella to jump above the ledge. You can now hook the ground next to you to get a speed boost to kickstart your movement. Then follow it up by opening the umbrella facing downwards to act like a spinning top and keep your speed. You can then pole vault out of it for a big jump. For the final hook mechanic, I added vines that can be swung on after hooking onto them. You can also pull down on the umbrella to climb the vine, just like the ledge jump. Now the last major step for the playtest, updating the level design. The first thing was to make it easier to make terrain using a tile map, rather than placing individual blocks. I had to change the way the hook detects the ground, but it was worth it. The goal of the jam map was to go only up until you reach the moon. But for the full game, I want to make it a Metroidvania. Now I know what you're thinking. You said you wanted to reduce the scope of the project. But think about a small Metroidvania and then reduce that by a factor of 5. This will be a 1 or 2 session game. The premise is that you explore the world, finding upgrades to your umbrella that will allow you to explore new depths and heights. The first upgrade being the hook handle, which you'll find at the bottom of the first cave. You can then use it to get out of the cave, since it's impossible to get out without it. Separating the game from Getting Over It is an interesting decision. It's no longer a streamer bait game, which could be marketing suicide, but I don't play those games. And if I'm making a game for me, it won't matter if nobody plays it. To add an element of danger to the caves, there are water hazards. If you stay in them for too long, you shut down and respawn. I made a water meter on the display that shows how much water you've taken on. Now the day had come. It was time to playtest. Fitting that it was a rainy day. People got the hang of the controls much quicker than I expected. I think it helped to remove the hook ability at the start, so people could just focus on the pole vault and the float. It was interesting to see the different techniques people had to climb the long vine. Most people were able to come back out of the cave, and didn't give up after dying a few times to the water, or just soft-locking the umbrella inside a wall. Twice. And some even asked if there was more, which was encouraging. I guess I'll have to make more of the world in the next devlog. Subscribe so you won't miss it.